Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our first annual membership meeting. Our board chair, David Adame, is tied up this afternoon. He may be able to join us a little bit later. He was going to kick us off, but I will just ask my colleague to advance the slide here, and I will just dive right into our content. So this is kind of just the opening remarks, which David was going to prepare, but I was going to share, but I will just kick off by saying that I'm so honored to be here. My name is Marla Bilonick. I'm the relatively new president and CEO of NALCAB. Prior to being with NALCAB, I ran an organization called the Latino Economic Development Center based in Washington, D.C. I did that for the greater part of the last decade, and LEDC is a member of NALCAB, longstanding member, and therefore I know NALCAB very well, had served on the board for 5 years. Huge fan of the organization, and so extremely grateful and excited to be at the helm now. Next slide. So today, just to frame sort of where we're going, we are going to just talk a little bit about NALCAB in general, particularly for newer members who might want to have a greater understanding of what membership entails. And then we're going to talk about our achievements in 2020 and the first half of 2021. And then from there, we're going to discuss upcoming events. In between all of that, we're going to tap into your knowledge base to get your input on how we can serve you better. We'll have a live poll. And so we really are grateful for your time this afternoon, and we'll make it as fruitful as possible. And we're just so excited to have you here. So just quickly going over NALCAB's mission. Our mission is to strengthen the economy by advancing economic mobility in Latino communities. Now, what exactly does that mean? Basically, we are looking to push cash into the communities that our members serve, and we do that in several ways. Both by engaging donors and investors, as well as through our capacity building activities that ultimately strengthen your organization so that you can do more work, serve more people, serve your community in the best possible way. Next slide. So the ways that we work with our members, and this is actually a photo from my first site visit day that I visited Clues and LEDC, not to be confused with the LEDC in DC, but the LEDC in Minnesota. This was at their St. Paul office with one of their borrowers in June. So the ways that NALCAB works with our members are first through capacity building. So we are looking to work with you to help you to start your organizations, grow your organizations, expand, serve more people. And we do that through a series of different approaches that we'll get into in the upcoming slides. We also conduct impact investing activities. We ourselves are a community development financial institution, or CDFI. So we lend to our members, as well as channeling grants through our members. And this is all in the name of generating positive social and economic impact. We also engage in public policy. So we are very active both at local and federal levels. We look to build your capacity to engage with your representatives. We do that directly. We have done a lot of coordinating of meetings between our member organizations and their representatives, as well as preparing them to engage in those meetings and bring their concerns to bear. And the fact that I'm based in Washington, D.C. is partially due to our commitment to really expanding that activity and representing you all and the needs and concerns of our membership in Washington. Next slide. So we work in several program areas, and this is in terms of how we support organizations. So we are helping organizations to develop their small business development programming. We are working with organizations who are either starting or expanding financial capability programming, and we also work in the field of equitable neighborhood development, and that is really working with organizations so that they are able to preserve affordable housing, preserve commercial corridors that are quickly gentrifying. And NALCAB has also developed a proprietary GIS mapping technique to predict where gentrification will take place. And that is part of our work in the equitable neighborhood development line of work. And I understand now why we always just refer to it as END, because it's a real mouthful. All right, next slide. So our membership is a membership of nearly 140 mission-driven organizations in 40 states, DC, and Puerto Rico that serve ethnically diverse Latino communities. And so you'll see in later slides, we are really working to expand our membership base. Last year, we were at around 120. We're currently closer to 140 and really want to push that number up. We know there are so many organizations in our communities that could really use the support of NALCAB, use the grants that we push through to our members, and use the capacity building services as well as lending services that we offer to be able to expand their ability to serve the communities that we care the most about. Next slide. In terms of the value that we provide to members, one is just allowing our members to be part of a network that influences public policy and private investment that benefits the Latino and immigrant communities that you all serve. We provide access to grant funding and loan capital, as well as application assistance. So application assistance with some of the bigger federal programs, such as Community Economic Development, CDFI, financial assistance, CDFI technical assistance, and other larger federal opportunities. One thing that I just want to say too, that I meant to say at the outset, is having been a customer of NALCAB, I really believe in the value that NALCAB provides to its members, and that is sort of part of the gospel that I'm hoping to spread as we, get out there and really try to enroll as many members as we can, because I just really, really know the impact that it had in the organization that I used to lead, and I just want to spread that to as many organizations as possible so that we can have the most impact on the communities that we care about. So then going to the third bullet, we also offer intensive technical support that's provided both individually to organizations as well as among peer groups or pairings of organizations. And that's something we're actually looking to expand more formally, is really pairing sort of more established, larger, higher capacity organizations with newer, lower capacity organizations to be able to really take some of that knowledge that is so strong in our high capacity organizations and spread it among the membership. Also, by being a member, you have access to our national training, our workshops, our webinars, our public policy training and events, and meetings with policymakers. And all of that is on our website, constantly updated, but we will go into detail in terms of what's coming up in the near term. We also have leadership development opportunities through the Pete Garcia Fellowship. This has been an incredible resource for so many organizations looking to sort of develop that next generation of leaders, develop a strong bench of people who can succeed the current leadership. And I just know that this program is so important. It's been going on for a decade. We'll talk more about it later on in the presentation, but just such a huge value add to the membership. We also offer inclusion into our innovative consortium efforts. So this is sort of some of what we were talking about group technical assistance. And then, as stated earlier, access to other NALCAB members across the US and the deep knowledge base and expertise of the network. This cannot be understated. It's such a huge asset that NALCAB brings to the table, is, organizations that are deeply rooted in the community, have incredible experience, incredible success and impact in their communities. And we really want to help facilitate that networking and those connections. Next slide. So here we'll go into, just patting ourselves on the back, a review of 2020 and 2021. And again, just keep in mind that 2021 is just these initial 6 months. Next slide. So obviously a big focus in the most recent time has been addressing the COVID-19 crisis. I'm very proud to share that NALCAB mobilized more than $17.6 million in grants and low interest loans in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, We supported over 120 nonprofits and over 600 minority-owned businesses. Some detail around what we did: we created a hub and spoke network for PPP lending. You may be aware that we pivoted our Acceso fund to be able to provide low-cost short-term capital for our lender members. We also engaged in policy engagement and provided guidance on the CARES Act, PPP, CDFI funding, and related advice around stimulus packages. We created a COVID-19 tools and resources page on our website that all of our members could access. And we also provided targeted training and TA to help member organizations adapt their services, navigate federal programs, and connect to critical resources. So just like all of you, we also shifted our focus and really worked to support you all through the pandemic, which we all know has been just such an intense time for our communities and for our organizations. Next slide. Other sort of data points here to keep in mind, just breaking it down through our activities. In terms of capacity building, we provided nearly $6 million in subgrants, which were made to 210 organizations. We made investments totaling $13.5 million to support small business lending, affordable housing development, and preservation of affordable commercial space. We also trained over 815 practitioners through our training and leadership development activities, which we did virtually during this time period, just like all of you. And we also engaged approximately 50 network members in policy efforts during this time period. Next slide. In terms of highlights of the last 18 months, we have engaged in a lawsuit against the CFPB. Basically, this is in response to threatening to repeal the 2017 payday rule protections, and that is ongoing. But NALCAB really came out in front. You know, oftentimes we're part of larger group efforts or sign on to other efforts, but in this case, we have been out in front of this case, and it is a lawsuit that is brought by NALCAB against the CFPB. We also released the Latino Economic Agenda, which is a report that you can also find on our website that is describes the Latino perspective on U.S. domestic economic policy. We defended the Community Reinvestment Act. We all know that under the guise or auspices of modernization, CRA had been under threat, particularly under the last OCC leadership. And so we, really worked to defend making sure that CRA was preserved and most impactful to the work that we do. We also hosted the inaugural Latino Economic Policy Summit. That was in November of last year. I hope that many of you participated in that and were able to experience that. That was to some degree the swan song of my predecessor, Noel Pollo, who had really assembled an incredible group of folks to put on that event, including Julian Castro, who was the keynote speaker for that event. We also supported equitable development planning and projects in 22 markets where more than 700,000 people reside. We provided $6.4 million to member lenders to facilitate PPP lending. And we managed 35 subgrants to 26 organizations to strengthen financial capability programs that served 16,700 individuals. And I'll just note that that last data point was only 2020, so that number would be substantially greater counting 2021 figures. Next slide. All right, so we're going to go into our live poll. I'm going to hand it off to Sharon, who's going to be taking this on.
Hello, and we encourage everyone, if you can see the live poll questions, to please provide some feedback. The first two questions are, would you like to see NALCAB explore adding new programs or services to better meet the needs of our members? And if you answer yes to question one, please select the areas that you would be interested in us pursuing in expanding our program areas. We'll give folks a few seconds to answer. On question number 2, please select all that apply. And in about 15 or 20 seconds, we will go ahead and share the poll results for questions 1 and 2. And here are our results. So at least 83% of you would like to see us explore adding some new program areas. And among those, it looks like it's almost an equal split of the areas or the options that we have here. So this is really valuable information for us. So thank you all very much. Give you a second to take a look at what the responses were, and then we can move on to question number 3. For question number, for the next question, which is actually question number 1 on this screen, which NALCAB member benefits has your organization taken advantage of in the past 12 months? And please check all that apply. Give folks a few more seconds to respond. And I also would mention that if you weren't aware of some of these member benefits, please do think about taking advantage of them in the near future. And here are the results of that poll. I'm actually very happy to see that 88% of you have been able to take advantage of funding opportunities, and a whopping 94% of our virtual webinars and workshops. Excellent. Okay, we'll go on to the next final 2 questions. And I think that is a repeat of the last one. So we'll go ahead and move forward to the final 2 questions that we have in our live poll. There we go. For these, this has to do with public policy work. Is your organization active in the area of public policy and advocacy? And if you did answer no, what are some of the reasons for not being active in this area? We'll give folks just a few more seconds to answer. And I see we have something in the chat about submitting when answering yes. Not sure on that one. So let's see what ends up happening with our poll results on this particular question. Let's go ahead and close this and see if we can see our poll results. Okay, so we have, and I hope we have been able to at least get most people's responses to this particular question. This is very valuable information for our public policy team. to know and for our strategies in the future, and helping to empower our network members to be able to do public policy and advocacy, if indeed that's part of your mission. Okay, great. We will close the live poll. Thank you all very much for participating, and we will share these results on social media later this afternoon. Okay, and we can, oh, sorry, I'm sorry. We actually have one more question. I spoke too soon. Please post that again. This is the final question. Yes, and actually a very important one. What are the biggest challenges your organization is facing this year? And please check all that apply. We'll give folks just a few more seconds to read through all of the options and make their choices. Okay, and here are the results. It sounds like there is a good portion of people that are having challenges with their organizational capacity and workload. I think we have heard this a lot across the network, and it's probably true for most of us. Excellent. Thank you all so much. That was very valuable information as well. And now we actually are finished with the live poll. And I'm going to turn it back over to Marla.
Thank you so much. And that was Sharon Garcia. She's our Director of Communications here at NALCAB. And we were so grateful for her to man that poll. I think we're all just adjusting to operating in this new reality. And I'm grateful that you were able to do it with such grace, Sharon. Thank you for doing that. And I also want to say this information was so helpful. I cannot tell you, how validating it is of some of our hypotheses and how useful it is as we look toward planning and programming for the next month. So super helpful. Thank you so much for participating. And potentially, I haven't engaged with my team on this ask, but potentially we can share some of that information more broadly, just so that folks can see where it all ended up. So thank you again. So we will continue with the presentation before heading into questions and answers. Just a couple of points around what we foresee for the coming months. So if you could advance to the next slide, please. So this says it's my near-term priorities. I would just expand that to say that they're the organization's priorities, but sort of things that I came into the role seeing as areas where we can really expand. And so one is just, very straightforward, increasing investment into NALCAB and our members. So really doing a lot around resource development and sort of structuring our organization so that we can pursue larger opportunities and also engage some of what I would call not the usual suspects. So, engaging corporate partners that potentially hadn't been as involved or that are not, our traditional bank lenders and funders, but sort of going outside the box there. And so I really look forward to expanding our reach in that arena. We also, as I mentioned earlier, are really looking to expand the membership base. I think there's a lot of opportunity to bring on new members. There are a lot of strong Latino-led, Latino-facing organizations that we absolutely can bring on, and that would bring so much richness to our membership. I'm going to also be turning to you all to help me with that. I think there's a real role for our members in terms of being ambassadors out in the community. I know myself, when I led a member organization, even without being on the board, just talking to folks about the impact that NALCAB had on our organization, I really think that word of mouth is probably the most valuable form of referral. So, we'll be talking to you more about that. And also looking into perks, if let's just like a gym membership, if you refer someone, can we take some of the dues off, or just experimenting with different ways that we can expand the membership base, because in addition, on the policy side, having more members makes our voice stronger and more readily heard. So we really want to make sure that we're bringing up our membership base. And then tied to this is emphasizing our brand building. So this is sort of all of our presence across social media platforms. We have over 6,000 followers at this point in time across our platforms, and we know that that's growing, and we want to see it grow even further. We want people to know what NALCAB is. Half of the times, either as a member or in my current role, when I would bring up NALCAB, people would sort of curiously ask, what is that? What do we do? And so I really want our name and our purpose to become synonymous in the circles where we operate. Also increasing and enhancing national policy engagement. I know that there's a follow-up question about this, but I'll just speak briefly about that. Clearly, my presence here in Washington is going to support that. We've grown our team. For those of you who know Clarinda Landeros, she heads up our policy team. She just added an additional staff person to her team. And I really think that being in DC and being able to sort of join opportunities at a moment's notice will be really, really helpful. I've had the opportunity to provide congressional testimony over the past 4 years or so, and look forward to continuing to do that, and also just engaging in more informal ways on Capitol Hill. And then lastly, deepening the capacity building for you all. We want to make sure that we are doing everything in our power to support you, to grow your organizations, to support your staff, develop your staff, and to really, again, do that cross-member, cross-pollination of all of you so that you can benefit from each other's knowledge and experiences. I think that there's so much to be said for receiving support from another organization that really has been in the trenches, that understands what it's like to operate in the community. We have wonderful consultants, and I don't want to discount any of their ability to support organizations, but I do believe very firmly that peer-to-peer support is really, really valuable as well. Next slide. So upcoming events, we've got a lot coming up. And so I'm just going to run through some of it here. Everything is available on our website. As you can see below, there's the link there, and you can access everything sort of updated in real time, but just some key items that we wanted to bring to your attention. On the policy side, we've got Summer in the States coming up. For those of you who are not familiar with that, it's a guided opportunity to engage your representatives while they are on recess in your home territories. So we're having a webinar about that next Thursday, August 5th, where you can learn more about how to engage your local policymakers while they are outside of Washington and here. Also, we are doing, so the virtual policy maker meetings are sort of an offshoot of that. So that will take place throughout August, but you'll get guidance around that on August 5th. We also have upcoming community development workshops. The first is why financial capability matters to your programs. Next, we will be exploring ITIN services, resources, and tools. And then we are also having a webinar on business incubators, commercial kitchens, and mercados. We know that this is an area that folks are really interested in. All of these are really important to our membership. And I think if I could encourage all of you, if you're looking at exploring new programming areas, that's a great way to engage NALCAB. We have not only the expertise of our members, but of our staff. We have, very, very experienced staff in the various program areas that can support your organization if you just want to explore a new programmatic opportunity, see if it might be a fit, see if you have the capacity to do it. We're here to really support you in that. And then on October 6th, we've got our Latino Economic Policy Summit. We are, knee deep in preparing for that. Really, really excited to show you what that's going to be all about. Registration will open next month, which is just around the corner next month. And we're really excited to put that on for you all. Next slide. And then last but not least, we have our Pete Garcia Community Economic Development Fellowship, otherwise known as Colegio Fellowship, coming up. We are opening it up with a webinar tomorrow at 2 p.m. Central that will describe the fellowship, how it's going to work. It's going to be offered in a hybrid model this upcoming time, and it will be some in person, some virtual. And so tomorrow you'll have the opportunity to hear all the details about what it's going to entail. The application itself opens on Friday, and applications are due, or the application period closes September 6th. So you'll have about a month, a little bit more than a month, to turn it around. But again, I can't underscore how important this program is. You know, right now we're sort of going through a generation where a lot of founding leaders or leaders who are looking to step aside from their roles, that timing is sort of happening right now, and we are really, really we really believe in developing the bench of our emerging leaders in the organizations that we have in our membership. And so, you know, I can say firsthand from the organization that I used to lead that several people who went through have gone on to leadership positions, not only in their own organizations, but outside of their organizations. If you're able to attend the webinar tomorrow, you will actually hear from graduates who can speak to their experiences. I know many of the graduates have become executive directors in their own rights. And so I'm really, really excited for that. And then I think we're going straight to Q&A if I'm not mistaken. Yes. And we may end up early since our first speaker wasn't able to make it. So that may give you a little more time to finish your lunch, but I'm happy to stay as long as folks have questions.
Thank you, Marla. So I'll get started and launch us with our first question. Attendees, if you have any more, please feel free to drop them in the chat. First question is NALCAB doing an in-person national training event this year? If not, when will NALCAB have its next in-person training?
So our next in-person training is taking place in 2022. It will be in person and it will be in Washington. That is about as much as I have to give you guys, but that's sort of the preview. It will be the first time that the national training will take place in Washington, and we're really, really excited to have you all and host you all here.
Thanks, Marla. So second question is from Kirk, and the question is, curious if Marla could respond to the tension of having a goal of expanding the network while investing more heavily in network members.
Yes. So I think it's all intertwined. So, you know, I think having a larger membership makes us more compelling to funders. So I think it's kind of like a chicken and the egg. So, you know, the more funding we get, the more we can invest in our members. I also do believe that we can get more funding by having more members. It may sound counterintuitive, but I think, you know, the strength of our organization is somewhat underscored or underlined by the number of members that we have. So I do want to strike a balance. I don't want to spread us so thin that we're not able to support the membership both financially and through capacity building with, you know, too large of a membership. At the same time, you know, and I hate to make this comparison because I really do believe it's apples and oranges, and I do really, really respect Unidos US. We are actually not very far off from the Unidos membership number, which, if I remember from my last check, was 183. So I just want to make sure that folks know that we're operating in the same ballpark. That would sort of be a goal for me. That doesn't mean we need to get to 183, but I do think that we can get to larger. You know, I'm just thinking about the community where I'm personally sitting right now. There are organizations that once I got to NALCAB, I was extremely surprised to hear that they weren't members of NALCAB. And so, you know, I think it's worth having that conversation, both to be able to support more organizations and have a greater impact on the community, but also just to validate our organization, both publicly and in the eyes of potential investors.
Okay, and our third question is from Nelly, who's asking, is the fellowship available to non-Hispanics managing Latino-led organizations serving a large Latino population?
I believe so. I have colleagues on the line if that is not the case, but I do believe so. Yes, Natalia.
Hi there. Yeah, so our fellowship is aimed only for Latinos,
Oh.
but it doesn't matter if the organization is not led by a Latino. All that matters is that you're serving Latinos as well and that you're a Latino to apply.
Got it. Okay, so I think if I understood that right, then you must be Latino to be able to apply. Correct? Yes. Okay. So I was wrong. Apologies for that. Are there further questions, Jazz?
Yes, we have a couple more questions. The next one is, how do members stay current on what grant and TA opportunities are available?
So I know that we publicize the opportunities in our newsletter. And the link was just put in there. We're sort of all on the same page. So that would probably be your best bet. I think another challenge that we've had, and this is part of sort of what I've been doing in the first couple of months that I've been here, and just in terms of looking at how we can be the most efficient, is that our support of members up until this point has been decentralized. We're looking to centralize that under at least one, if not more, individuals. And so we also want it to be so that we know your organizations and know you well, so that when an opportunity comes up, we can also proactively reach out and say like, hey, I hope you saw this. We know this is your area of expertise and interest. And so, you know, please make note of this opportunity as it's particularly relevant for you. But right now, the best place to find that information is through the newsletter. And it's linked in the chat.
Thanks, Marla. And I think we have time for a couple more questions. The next one is, do you foresee NALCAB's headquarters relocating?
I do not have any plans to relocate NALCAB's headquarters in the current time. I really don't, how would I say this? I'm taking this first year to just look at everything that we're doing, make sure that we are doing it as efficiently as we possibly can. You know, it's very interesting. I think prior to the pandemic, it would have been unheard of to be able to lead an organization from my dining room table where I'm sitting from right now. That's in a completely different state, a completely different city. But I think right now we have, you know, everything that we need to be able to do that. What I will say is that I am looking to grow the DC office, not necessarily by proxy of eliminating the San Antonio office. There are key staff people that I would personally like to have, you know, sort of more immediate access to. And therefore, when there are openings and when it makes sense, we are sort of posting those as DC-based opportunities. But no, I do not have any plans to relocate the NALCAB headquarters to DC at this point in time.
Okay, and then another question is, knowing that capacity and recruiting staff are top needs for members according to the early responses, will NALCAB consider investing on job posting platform and strategy to help its members improve recruiting?
I think that's a really interesting question. And I wasn't surprised by the poll result, but it just really gave me pause. I think that this is a huge need. And I really, you know, even for us, when we're recruiting, for example, we are really, you know, challenged. And I think that the base of the NALCAB membership is so rich with a lot of, you know, talented and energetic individuals that are working in the organizations that we serve. And I also know from my experience working in the field that oftentimes once you get to a certain point in your own organization, there's really nowhere else left to go. And so I would love for us to be able to be providing opportunities, you know, from one organization to the next for our emerging leaders to grow. And so I don't know what shape and form that will take. I'll, just be totally straightforward with my own ignorance about what kinds of platforms are out there and what the associated expenses are. But given the fact that that did come up as such a huge priority, I really think it would be something that we should definitely, pay more attention to, invest in. I know that we have job postings in our newsletters and potentially online as well, but I think we could do something to put that more front and center. Because I know also on the recruitment side, it's really challenging for folks to find talented people. On the talent side or the supply side, there are a lot of talented individuals that are looking for opportunities to grow. And I think that NALCAB would be the perfect place to match those two groups.
Thanks, Marla. And I think we have one final question that hopefully someone from fellowship can help us answer. It's just in regard to cost of fellowship and if we know anything about that.
Sure. So we're actually opening the application this Friday. So we're really excited about it. And then we will be charging $500 for NALCAB members. It will be a 12-month program. And then we'll be charging $1,000 for nonprofits that are non-NALCAB members. And we're actually going to be receiving applications from applicants that are part of financial institutions. And that will be a fee of $2,000. We will go through all the details in tomorrow's webinar, as well as you will have all the information live on Friday on our website.
Yes, I encourage you to attend that webinar tomorrow. It will have every detail that you can imagine and more, as well as testimonials from graduates or alumni, I should say.
Thanks, Marla. And I believe that's it for questions, but there is a comment from Marucci that I just wanted to share. She says, not a question, but she appreciates the conversation around health and economic outcomes. We have a free clinic for uninsured and social determinants of health that have a profound impact on family stability and success. And they would love to have or explore this conversation further on how NALCAB can help them and others make this case. So, thank you, Marucci, for sharing.
We will definitely keep that in mind. And I think as we also engage with more healthcare providers who are looking at economic impacts on health, that we sort of are able to bridge that for the membership. So absolutely. And that sounds like an amazing initiative. Marucci, I remember you, I met you in Orlando. I don't know if you remember meeting me, but it was a pleasure to meet you then. And I'm so happy that you're on the webinar. All right. Okay, so one last thing, we were looking to link tomorrow's webinar into the chat somehow. There we go. Or there's information on it. There we go. The registration link is there. We'll give you all a chance to click on that. And the FAQ session on August 16th. All right. Is there anything further? If not, I'll hand it off to my colleagues to close out. Just shut down the entire thing. Anyway, thank you all so much. It's been a pleasure and an honor to be with you this afternoon. Take care.